Roll call the City Council for the meeting on Wednesday, August 21st at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Winarski, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Evans, Mr. Rancunzo, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Witherspoon. All please rise for a moment of silent meditation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. President, if I may, we ask our God and Creator tonight to continue to give us wisdom and the proper information that we may make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie. And we also ask that we remember all those in our community that are less fortunate than we are any and every way, and those that have lost loved ones since the last time we were in these chambers.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting from the 7th of August, payment of bills for August 23rd and August 30th. Mr. Brennan, Mr. Evans, Mr. Rancunzo, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. Okay. To go right into repository sales. We have some people here.
Do we have anybody here tonight for a repository sale? Please step forward. Please state your name and
Armin Leone, and the address is 1112 West 11th.
please state that just the property and what your intentions are. And
Actually, it's 1112 West 11th. I own the property next doors to it, and people just coming in there and throwing garbage and stuff like that, so we want to get it cleaned up and get some grass growing and maybe put a fence around it and go from there.
Mr. President, is the site vacant now?
Yes.
Okay, and it's just grass, or what is it?
Actually, there's a
Overgrown.
pile of skids there, a truck cap, and they had a truck in there, and they just got it out. And garbage. We were keeping up on the grass for the longest time, and it's just getting out of hand now.
Okay, and you're going to clean that all up?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
any other questions from council?
No. Thank you.
Hearing none, thanks.
Thank you.
We will not vote on this tonight. We'll do it at a following meeting, and odds are you'll get your request.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else here tonight for a repository sale? Last call. Anyone else? Hearing none. Brings us to citizens to be heard. Father, I believe we have Amy Comatori as scheduled in.
Well, Amy, do you want to speak about the buses?
Yes, sir.
Just the buses?
Yes, sir.
Then wait till 8 o'clock. You have to wait till 8 o'clock. This is for general topics.
Good evening, members of the City Council and President.
But you'll be first.
My name is Father Jerry Perscaro, 921 East Avenue. There are a series of substantial and critical errors contained in the L.R. Kimball Engineering Federal Transportation Study. The process employed, the documents drafted, cost analysis figures, environmental justice, and public outreach aspects, public input, and the Citizen Advisory Committee, and the recommended preferred alternative being proposed. Some errors discovered are errors of commission. Other errors are clearly errors of omission. Because the federal transportation study regarding the McBride Viaduct has been by far the most significant transportation issue facing our city in several years, it is important whenever critical and substantial errors and omissions are discovered that they not be glossed over, rather that they be revealed. I am requesting a 2-hour study session with members of City Council on a date and time of your choosing, so I may present all of the transportation study errors to you. This will help you to be in a better position to make an informed decision about the future of the McBride Viaduct and the L.R. Kimball Engineering Transportation Study. I believe once you see all of the critical errors with the Federal Transportation Study, you will raise all kinds of questions and perhaps even some objections to that alternative, because it is not the best alternative for the people of the City of Erie. You, the members of City Council, have an important role to be involved in with the decision-making concerning this transportation matter. You can accept, reject, and/or replace the recommended alternative with a more preferred alternative that will benefit the people. Nothing can happen without City Council's involvement, consent, and approval. No other bridge transportation connection in the City of Erie has ever had the support of 12,455 people who signed petitions. Their intent has been and still is clear. L.R. Kimball Engineering was hired to recommend a preferred alternative. Before that preferred alternative can be considered a done deal, the Federal Highway Administration, PennDOT Central and Harrisburg, city administration officials, as well as federal, state, and local legislators must concur. That is, they must all agree with the recommendations, and they must all be willing to sign off on it. Just because a preferred alternative was announced by an engineering firm does not in any way mean anything is a done deal. It isn't. Some might like you to think that, and the general public as well, so this transportation issue might disappear, but that will not happen. This is our city, this is our bridge, this is our future, not L.R. Kimball Engineering's bridge, and certainly not PennDOT's bridge. An out-of-town engineering firm is far removed from the common, everyday lived experience of those who live, work, teach in, and attend schools, operate businesses, run nonprofit agencies, keep churches going, and clubs open. I hope you, the members of City Council, will provide me with the opportunity to provide you with a real eye-opening experience into the many errors that have been detected. I hope to hear from you at your convenience, and I hope you will take me up on my request to present information to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jerry Ryan. My home address is 347 March Street. I have pictures here I'd like to give to you. It deals with the McBride Viaduct, and it shows the deterioration to the bridge. It's been allowed to deteriorate. The foundation of the bridge is solid. There's nothing wrong with the physical structure of the bridge. What's wrong is that once they decided to build a new bridge, they just let the other one go, just deteriorate. And there was no reason for that except that they no longer want the bridge to be useful, so therefore they allow it to deteriorate. But the amount of work done on it is minimum. It's basically cosmetic work that has to be done on the bridge. It's a solid bridge and capable of doing the job it was made new in 1937. Could I present the pictures to you, please?
Certainly.
Pictures will pretty much show what I discussed, and I appreciate you looking at them and keeping them as a part of your documentation. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your time. Any other citizens to be heard tonight?
Evening, Council President, members, administration, guests. My name is Randy Barnes, 109 Walton Point. And as I told you a couple months ago, I can't tell you whether things that have happened are right or wrong, like, for instance, moving the bus. So I'm not going to speak about that tonight later when you have your hearing. But what I want to talk about a little bit is about studies, kind of tail on to what Father Jerry said about these studies, because these studies are just that, studies, and studies can be right and studies can be wrong. And case in point, there was a study done about the congestion or the bus traffic down on State Street. There was a study done, and that was paid for by our tax dollars, and it was done by a Harrisburg firm. And in the study, I wonder Was there anyone, do you think, that read that study all the way from the front to the back? Do you think someone at the EMTA read that from the front to the back? Do you think anyone at the administration read the study from the front cover to the back cover? Because if they would have read that study, they would have seen that in the study it said there should be a public hearing with the stakeholders, with the public. Because this is public transit. It's a public study paid for by our public tax dollars. But in that study it said you should have a hearing. Kind of like what we're doing tonight, only an afterthought. So the thing about studies is we have to really remember, just like the study that the East Side and many members, 12,000 members of the public are concerned about, sign petitions. It is just a study, and like some studies, you get what you pay for. Studies can be kind of skewed toward results that may be less than optimum. But again, just keep in mind again, and I told you a couple months ago, I said, I don't know enough about downtown to say that was the right or wrong move, but I do know there is an alleyway for deliveries between 12th Street and 10th Street on the east side of the street. And maybe some of these, and I think the important part tonight is we're going to hear a lot of the users, the stakeholders, the people that use public transit, they're going to talk to you about this problem because they know it firsthand. But what I think is really important tonight is to list all the businesses that come down and tell you why this was a good idea. Because if you remember right, that was one of the things, Joe. First it was curb bump outs, and then we discovered, well, there were no curb bump outs at 11th or 10th Street or 8th or 9th or whatever. None north of 12th Street, no curb bump outs. So that was not really it. And then we heard that the administration wanted it, and then we heard that the bus company wanted it. Then we heard that the business owners wanted it. There was too much congestion. 4 lanes, there's 2 lanes going each way. Buses have a place they pull off to the side, so in theory, they should not be taking up any of those lanes. We're talking about a bus. We're not talking about, well, okay. We're not talking like a train going down the street that has 110 cars you got to wait for. You're talking about a bus. So I think it's important tonight when you council members and the public hear about this, why this was moved, that we count and we listen very hard to these business owners because there may be solutions, there may be other problems, there may be things we can do for them that is a compromise. Maybe these deliveries need to be made from 4 until 7 in the morning. Maybe we need to have smaller delivery trucks. Maybe they should be done at 3 in the morning when there's not much traffic out. But there may be solutions to these business owners' problems, so I encourage you again, listen very closely to what these business owners say, why they wanted this moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other citizens be heard this evening? Thought there might be one more. How are you?
You can count on that.
Good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is McDonald. My property is 19th and Reed. You know, I told them a while back down the road about that bridge. It's like a done deal. All that money been spent on that bridge over there. They could have had it half finished. They don't have to tear that bridge all the way down to reconstruct it. Somebody done made up their mind that they don't want it to happen. We're paying for the freight. Somebody else spending our money doing what they want to do. It's something like a piggy bank. You reach in when you get ready, when you need something. I think the taxpayers should have more to say about that than somebody that don't even live here. Like he said about that company that was looking it over. They don't live here. We need that bridge over there. It's been there all these years. Just because you got that new road over there, our kids can't go over there. A lot of kids are going across that road. They're risking their lives doing that. Hey, our kids mean something. I don't want nobody's kid to get killed. But somebody wants to put a few more dollars in their pocket and not, do what they're supposed to do. You're supposed to be representing us. We're taxpayers, but we get very little representation. I don't know. The more you let slide by, the more we'll slide by. But I don't know. And I don't. I know y'all brainstorms up there. You should, see a little bit further than your nose, but some of you don't. But what I really want to talk to you about is these guys coming out of jail. They done served their time. What else can you expect of them? They can't get no job. You've been to jail. Hell, a lot of y'all need to be in jail from some of the things you done did. And them politicians too, down there in Harrisburg and Washington. Most of them should be in jail. You can't do this, you can't do that. What do you expect them to do when they come out? They're not going to starve if they have to come to your house. That's a bad situation there. When you serve your time, hey, you're bringing all these peoples over here. A lot of them probably coming out of jail. I see gangs forming here. We're going to catch hell here after a while. You just wait. I'm not saying that those people don't deserve to come, but hey, having no catastrophes happen over there that you got to be bringing all them peoples over here. I see more of them working than I see people that live over here working. You bring them here, you give them our money, you give them our jobs. I see them walking the streets smoking, drinking beer. You buy them cars. What the hell do you expect people to do? Hell gonna break a loose behind that after a while. You sit up there looking at me like I'm a damn fool, but I'm not no fool. I could see further than here. And you're gonna see a little further too. You just wait. You just wait. It ain't happened yet, but it's forming. I can see it. You're gonna be sorry. These non-profit organizations. It ain't nothing but big business trying to keep wages down. We done work. Everything goes up but a man's wages. His wages should go up with everything else. Yours go up. Yours go up. But the poor working man, everything is on his back. That man gonna get tired after a while and he won't give a damn about dying. We go and fight for other people. When our soldiers come back, you kick them in their butt. Up one side, down the other. They come back arms missing, legs missing, half a head missing. And you don't appreciate their loyalty. You don't appreciate them. That's a damn shame. But let me tell you something. God will deal with you one day. A lot of you that don't probably believe in God. But there's a God. There is a God. Take my word for it. Because he's been good to me. I didn't think I would live to get as old as I am. I really didn't. But now, you're trying to bring slavery back. Not y'all more or less, but look like ever since the president been in, everything he's want to do, the Republicans are against it. You got some Democrat Republicans too. And that's a damn shame. Because Obama is the best thing been in there in a long time. I love him. And when he gone, if you had somebody like Mitch Romney in there, that's what you deserve, though, somebody like that, just kick you in your butt, lying, everything he said would be a lie. But this man,
Mr. McDonald.
yeah, I'll be done in a minute.
Well, no.
I know you don't want to.
I'll give you 15 seconds.
One of these days, it's going to come back on you. And you're going to wish he was back in there, but he'll be gone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other citizens be heard tonight? Please step forward.
I think she's going to talk on the bus.
Are you here to talk regarding the buses, ma'am?
The buses and about our sewer system.
Okay.
I have to,
Please come forward.
I have to leave some because I gotta get up and get my lift to go back home. I didn't know it started at 8.
That's all right. Please state your name and
Okay, I'm Bev Milliron. I live down on West Fifth. There's a problem with trees growing out of the sewers, and I feel the city isn't going to do anything about it because it's one of the poorest neighborhoods where I live at. I used to live up on Upper East 38th Street. We had a problem with our sewers. They were out there, right then and there to fix them. Since I am been unemployed for about 15 years, I live down on the lower west side. Nothing's done.
Where's that? Where at?
And I thought, well, oh well, what the hell, money talks.
What was your address again, ma'am?
I live on West Fifth.
Can you tell us I'm sorry, Mr. President. Can you tell us the intersection that you're talking about as the
6th and
trees?
Raspberry.
6th and Raspberry?
6th and Raspberry and 6th and Cascade. There are stuff growing out of the sewers, and on 2nd and 3rd, too. Our city isn't doing anything about it. I called and complained several times, and they said, well, we'll get to it. I thought, yeah, sure. Bull. We lived up on Upper East 38th Street. Bingo bango, it would have been done, but if you live down in the lower east side, west side, forget it. The city doesn't know you. And that's living in poverty. We make it stretch. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for
And I
coming
wish I could
out
say,
tonight.
screw on the city, I would move.
Any other citizens be heard this evening? Is it regarding the buses, sir? Or? Okay, we're going to have a public hearing in 5 minutes. And any other citizens to be heard other than the bus situation on State Street? Hearing none?
Okay. Want to take a couple items?
I'm thinking, yes.
Okay, we have for final passage, Council File Ordinance Number 15,845, an ordinance appropriating a sum of $25,000 from unappropriated anticipated revenue to be received from the County of Erie for the development of the City of Erie Comprehensive Plan. Motion by Mr. Evans, seconded by Mrs. Moran-Kuzzo. Council File Ordinance Bill 15,845, now known as Official File Ordinance 24, 2013, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brennan, Mr. Evans, Mr. Moran-Kuzzo, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. Ordinance for first reading, Council File Ordinance 15,846, an ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 26, 1958, the traffic code of the City of Erie by installing stop signs at 24 various intersections throughout the City of Erie. Motion of Mr. Mursky, seconded by Mr. Witherspoon, that Council File Ordinance number 15,846 have been read as hereby adopted on first reading of City Council. Mr. Brennan, Mr. Evans, Mrs. Moran-Kuzzo, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. Takes us to new business. Mr. President?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we move the rest of the agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Clem?
Motion to accept the new business. Any exceptions?
Council? Mr. Clem?
Hearing none, and roll call on the balance of the new business. Mr. Brennan, Mr. Evans, Mr. Moran-Kuzzo, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. That leaves us with old business for the public hearing at 8 o'clock.
We do not need a stenographer, Mr. Clem. This is
Information.
the public hearing. There's no stenographer or anything.
No, this is just for
Okay.
general public information.
I tell you what, since might as well get it started now. Can we do that legally?
Yes, sure. Amy Compatore had requested to be heard first.
Mr. President,
Yes.
can we hold on just a quick minute? We have a quick discussion. Sure. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you. In caucus, we did discuss that due to the volume of people here tonight, and if we could try to keep our comments 2 to 3 minutes. We know, we'll know after 30 seconds what people's stances are on this, and I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Other than that, we're just thinking. Yeah, we weren't going to, one thing we didn't mention, we weren't going to go for or against in any order. Just please step up to the mic, state your opinion on the matter, and move forward from there. So there's, if anyone would please just stand in line, and we'll go from there. I thank you all for coming.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I could, before we get started, since we're still just before 8 o'clock, liaison to EMTA, I just want to make sure that we understand, again, everyone has the right to articulate their position and be as passionate about it as possible, or as passionate as you need to be. But also, we want to continue to be respectful of this chambers and the decorum that we want to keep in this space. Also, I think it's important to understand that our endeavor tonight as council is not to
Vote.
we're not going to vote on anything, but we're providing a venue for the citizens to be able to articulate their concerns, their praises, their not-so-praised reports, if you would, about this shift and change in the routes for a portion of our downtown bus system. Again, be as passionate as you want and need to be. Respect the chambers, respect each other, but also, again, this was our intention, was to be able to hear the public opinion, not because we do have our own opinion. We do have our own position based on what we've done and studied in our experience, but this is not to vilify or to just just go off and just start snapping out on people and calling out, being disrespectful. I think it's important that we do this in a proper manner so that we can be beneficial, so that it can be productive. And I'm now 8:01, and so our public hearing should be starting already. But I just wanted to kind of just say that because that's the purpose
I
of what we're here
appreciate
for
that.
tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Amy?
Council, my name's Amy Comprador. I'm at 913 State Street, apartment 903, 16501. I submitted some paperwork to you earlier. I hope you have it. I'll be reading from it. There's 2 quotes by EMTA's lawyer, John Mailer, who said in his post-trial memo in an article to the Erie Times News as reported by Ed Patella on December 26, 2010. And I believe these quotes may still be relevant to this case as it is today with the bus changes. At no time and in no manner has EMTA exceeded the scope of its enumerated powers or deviated in any manner from its stated purpose. EMTA has acted and continued to act by seeking to benefit the people of Erie by increasing commerce and prosperity and improving their health and living conditions. It is my position, Council, that at this current time, EMTA has exceeded the scope of its enumerated powers and has deviated from its stated purpose, especially in this manner considering the current route changes regarding State Street and the denial of accessibility to the disabled and basically any citizens who wish to access transit in the great city of Erie. True problems that occur on the EMTA line and the E line as well, but more on the E line. Lack of cleanup at the bus stops and shelters. Responsibility ought to be held equally accountable by EMTA and the Downtown Partnership, bus riders, and citizens. I've explained here in depth to you on the following paperwork there. Maybe perhaps we need a littering ordinance. Maybe we all need to do our parts better in reference to being good neighbors. Perhaps that was one of the reasons why State Street, these bus stops were moved from State Street. We like to keep it's like your house. You like to keep it clean. You like to have a nice presentation outside. And I believe people think the same of their city. And when we don't keep it as clean or as nice as we can, we try to rectify those things. in a sense, just like crime. The appearance of State Street has become a real issue in the redevelopment of the city of Erie. Accessibility to the buses regarding the disabled, I've given you prior information on this with the cost of the regular bus versus the lift. If you live within a 4-block distance of any bus stop, then you do not qualify for the lift. This means that the residents on State Street are forced to use the E despite being disabled with a possible qualification for lift use. There is no formal complaint system at EMTA. There are no written complaints, no way to ensure that a complaint will be filed and followed up upon. Complaints are taken by a supervisor, and especially in regards to this situation with the State Street buses, in regards to Supervisor Landis Irwin, the marketing manager. Complaints, I believe, are getting swept under the rug. Many have complained to EMTA, but yet EMTA does not take the time to regard its complaints in a system that is fair to the consumer. If those complaints don't get reported to EMTA, then you never hear of them in another type of session, whether that be in an MPO meeting, whether that be here at council. There were 600 people that signed petitions, I want to tell you. There were 600 people of our citizens that thought it well enough that they submitted their names at the last MPO meeting and presented that petition to them. Also, if people do want to do something in regards to that, I want to make sure that I mention for a brief moment here the Federal Transit Authority, which governs for this particular region the entire state of Pennsylvania. If citizens have a complaint that they wish to further this up with, if they've not been able to find resolution with EMTA, I want to at least say that their number is 215-656-7100. Going on with the complaints with EMTA, on page 3 there, public safety, lighting, seating on Peach. There is only one shelter. Actually, there are no shelters on Peach. There are bus stops, there are signs, but gosh, there is no place to sit. And I treasure to think that when this happens and winter comes, that we are not going to be able to provide for our citizens. If you're going to move bus stops, have an ability to re-reconcile. That's not a plan B, that's doing the next right thing. I'm asking for the next right thing to be done here. That's why I said in the profiles that I've submitted with you, in regards to bump outs, Mr. Barnes had brought up, there are no bump outs at 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th Streets. All this stuff about bump outs, my firm belief it's a cover-up in a sense. The congestion, you have the paperwork there. And the congestion says that in regards to this magic word, I have heard a lot of things about 11 a.m. between 4 p.m. Well, that's when all the shifts are out there. That's self-explanatory. And in any city, that ought to be taken into consideration. In any city, that ought to be, well, you know what? That's when we've got all 3 forces of our workforce out on those blocks. You know what? If we have congestion at only that amount of time, that's pretty good for a city. You know? Also, I want to bring up one thing in regards to what was brought up at a prior MPO meeting in regards to Gannon, being somewhat of an under minority here. You know, one of the most curious things about this is that on Peach Street, Gannon has, if you take a look at a map of the city, Gannon has a building on every block just about of Peach. That's pretty convenient for our students. But as there have been disposed in many, many different meetings, redevelopment meetings, MPO meetings. Our students are only here for a short time, and then they go away. And our citizens that are here, that live here, that are here, whether they be disabled, whether they not be disabled, whether they be working parents, whoever they may be, they are here. And people aren't going to want to migrate into Erie if they don't see us taking care of our own. That's my most important thing that I can emphasize to you. I'm not against redevelopment, but I believe redevelopment starts at home. Also, to finally, to close on this, because I appreciate you letting me go through this. I believe that this can be rectified via this system because Mayor Sinnott sits on top of the EMTA board in a sense. Mr. Solinsky responds to the board responds to two people who they're appointed by, Mayor Sinnott and the County Executive Barry Grossman. If anything, this system recycles back to you. I want to say that a gentleman once said in one of these meetings here that the mayor proposes, council disposes. Well, council, this is your time to dispose. This is your time to hear the people and hear the facts and judge and, if need be, dispose of what has caused chaos in the community. One final thing. To say that there was a comment in papers, it's also been amongst ourselves. It's in the city. To say that our citizens are quote-unquote riffraff is totally inappropriate. I consider it to be vulgar, just as the N-word or any other demonstration of inappropriateness in any given area is inappropriate. An official, especially elected or appointed, who calls the citizens of the city that he or she is in service to such a vulgarity, or considers them in a group to be such a poor extent, and basically throw away at them, that's not a trusted servant. That's not a leader. And that's not the kind of leader that we ought to have serving here in Erie, to pull the people up, to give them a hand up and not a handout. Our leadership, our city leadership in particular, does not need people who are entrusted to such a dear city to put down the people of her city. You know, an official like that ought to be either penalized or removed. I've had the thought of bringing up to you at other meetings, but I've been saving it for this moment. Perhaps there could be, even in the recourse of this, if we do not find satisfaction here tonight, it might very well be said that the mayor's put the city of Erie in a really precarious position amongst itself. So I have decided I will not discuss alternatives to this plan just yet. I'm sorry, John, but I believe I will be saving that for winter. I will be pursuing this all through December, and I believe when we get into the colder months, when people start getting pains in their joints, they get tired of walking in 6 feet of snow, you will see this room bigger and fuller than it is, and we may have to keep people out of here. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
My name is Dorothy Plonsky. I live at 406 Sanford Place, Erie, Pennsylvania. And I would like to know why the bump outs were made. Who wanted them? Mayor Sinnott, City Council, or EMTA? How much did that job cost the taxpayers? Because of the bump outs, you now have to take the buses off of State Street and use Peach and French Street. New York City has a lot of traffic, but they do not have bump outs. The buses follow the curbs, and people get on the bus, and the cars, if they want, can follow or go into another lane. And that's all I'll say, but I do want to agree with Father Biscaro about the Bride Bridge. That was so nice, that bridge, because there's sidewalks on either side, and the cars...
Ma'am, I hate to interrupt you, but unfortunately, this public hearing's strictly on the bus changes.
If the kids have to go up on the Bayfront, it's Kamikaze Road, and there's a lot of accidents on the Bayfront.
I honestly understand. Thank you for coming out tonight.
I am Randy Gerline. I live at 33 Niagara Pier. I'm a CPA and a principal in the accounting firm of Roots, Spitsnoss and Smiley. Our firm has been doing business in the city of Erie for 95 years, of which I have been there for 45 of those years. Our firm has been in the 900 State Street office building for 33 years. We are not new to the neighborhood. During those years, we have paid many hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent, and the owners of the buildings over the years, which have been a few, have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to the city in real estate taxes. We have always supported the businesses in downtown Erie. Many businesses in our building have moved out of the downtown area because of situations in connection with the bus stop in front of our building. At any given time, there would be 30 to 50 people in front of our building. And at any given time, again, I believe that some of these people were just gathering out front, interacting with the people that were actually waiting for the bus. Getting in or out of the building using the State Street doors was practically impossible to do without some kind of confrontation. The running, screaming, playing kids in the lobby made it very difficult to conduct business in our building, as this was very distracting and loud. If you asked them to leave, you were confronted with threats and foul language. Several times the police were called to clear the lobby. There are no public restrooms in our vicinity, so people would urinate in our lobby practically daily. There was a constant urine smell in our lobby as we found out the artificial potted plants were being used as urinals. Since EMTA made the decision to reroute the buses to Peach and French Streets, these problems have stopped. The front of our building remains free of trash, and people are no longer congregating outside. The inside of our building is no longer a playground or a toilet. I am very pleased EMTA complied with the mayor's suggestion with rerouting the buses, as it did reduce traffic and sidewalk congestion, in addition to the unintentional assistance in eliminating the problems concerning our building in the process. Our Main Street looks more appealing to potential tax-paying businesses, in addition to long-standing businesses such as ours, to remain in the downtown area supporting the community. I applaud EMTA for this action and hope that the decision is not reversed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerline.
Hello.
Hi there.
Council. Laura Eaton. I own the Floral Gallery at 815 State Street. Been downtown for 31 years now. And have been through many things that have happened in downtown. I really do not agree with the buses going off State Street for two reasons. First of all, my business is suffering. I thought in the beginning that it wouldn't affect it to the point that it is. You know, we have many people who ride the buses. They are people who work jobs. We have people that work at GE that ride the buses. We have people that work at all different businesses, and they come downtown and they spend money. Well, now that the buses are off State Street, my business is down over 50% most days. How long can I stay in downtown Erie with those losses? You know, we have payrolls, we have everyday expenses that are there whether there's people coming in our door or not. But that's only one of the reasons. The second reason is I have people coming in my door every day asking for help about the bus situation. There's some pictures here that somebody brought that there is a bus stop on Peach Street, and it's the only one. It's between 10th and North Park Row. You can find one bus stop. On State Street, they were on every block. There is one shelter there. I have been monitoring what's been going on at the bus stops. I see very few people at the bus stops now on Peach Street. If you do see a few out in front of, there's a bus stop between 9th and 10th on Peach. Right there at the hotel, there's nowhere for you to sit. So if you're a senior citizen, you only have to go around the block, they tell me, but there's no place for you to sit. So you have to wait for a bus for 20 minutes or whatever. If it's raining, there is an overhang there, but there's no place to sit. You have to go down to 7th Street. So now you're walking how many blocks? You're with a walker, you're in a wheelchair, you're having trouble with a cane. We have a lot of seniors downtown that live that are blind. They have been trained to be on State Street. I have had one lady that's been into my store several times crying because she's only been trained to walk on State Street to catch the bus to go to her doctor's appointments or wherever she has to go. Now she has to be retrained, but she has to wait 6 months for that training. So now, how is she supposed to go to the doctors? How is she supposed to go anywhere? She can't do it until that's done. They tell me that you only have to walk a block to get to the bus if you're, if you live in downtown. Well, if you're on West 9th Street and you have to catch the bus on French Street, you have to go down to 7th and French. Okay, how many blocks is that? That's several blocks. That's an incline going down 9th Street, going down 10th Street. In the weather, we have lots of bad weather here. I mean, this isn't sunny Florida, so we have rain, hail, snow, and sleet. It hasn't even started yet. It's going to be very dangerous for these people to have to walk in the snow because the sidewalks are not always cleared, and if it could snow all day long, they can't be out there every 2 minutes clearing. These people have to go a long ways to catch the bus. It's not fair to the seniors. It's not fair to not telling anybody this was going to happen. And it's not fair. There's several businesses on State Street that are suffering, and they have told me this personally. It's not just the businesses. We'll survive one way or another. If we have to move out and go somewhere else, we'll have to do that. But the seniors and the disabled community are suffering dearly because of this, and it's affecting all of them. Some of them now have to take the lift because they can't get to the bus stop. If they're entitled to the lift, they have to pay each way. It's like $2.40 each way to go instead of the senior citizen discount they got on the buses. So this affects their income, and they're on a limited income already. So I'm not sure. I've been told this idea was by several prominent businessmen went to the mayor, and they didn't like the riffraff and the trash on State Street. Well, now we've not corrected the problem. If that's what the problem was, we need to police our people. You can go to any major city in the country, and they have their buses on their main street. Why are we so different? Why can't we police our people to make them behave? If there's a problem, then let's fix it. Now the problem's on French Street where it's darker. I would not want to be sitting out there at 8:30 at night to catch a bus. Some of the ladies left. They said they couldn't speak. They came up to me and told me they couldn't speak. They have to get on a bus before it gets dark because they're afraid. On State Street, you have 4 lanes. It's lit up. It's nice. It's policed better. On French Street, there's 2 lanes. When the buses are in that lane, now you only have 1 lane. You talk about congestion? Come down Peach Street. I follow the buses coming down in the morning. And I will tell you, there's more congestion now on Peach Street than there ever was before, because there's only 2 lanes, because you have parking. This idea of getting the congestion off State Street, down there 31 years, I have never seen the congestion. It is absolutely absurd that we can go to New York City and there's buses, and I have ridden on them. But in Erie, Pennsylvania, you have to go how far? I'm sorry, someone needs to look at this. I'd like to give you these pictures. Here's your one bus stop on Peach Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Do you need the address and everything too?
Name and address, please.
My name is Julie Minnick. I live at 1027 West 37th Street, zip code 16508. I'm here representing Olive Board Erie. We are a transportation advocacy group. I'd like to point out one thing that's been told to me several times when I said I was coming to this meeting. This meeting is at 8 o'clock, as Laura mentioned. The stops around here are dark, and there are several people that I know wanted to speak and were unable to. Bus stops stop running. Most bus routes stop running at 8:30, and I would hope that since this was a public meeting, this was taken into consideration. While it is true that EMTA is an independent authority, it seems that it was subject to city pressure. The E indicates that they were forced off of State Street between 4th and 10th. This issue is not just about the move. The move of the buses off State Street make us look rural. It looks like downtown Franklin. 33% of Erie residents use the bus. This is a fact that is seldom cited. They take it to work, they take it to school, they take it to college, they take it to appointments, and they take it to Erie tourist destination. By taking the bus, it relieves congestion. EMTA takes off 480 cars per day. Considering the fact this is not an accurate number, there are 80 buses. If only 6 people took a bus, that's how many cars would be alleviated from the streets. The E reduces congestion, and it helps also reduce city and county construction. The E is a valuable asset to the city and county. The riders, who have been portrayed unfavorably sometimes, should be looked at as patriots and visionaries. Now, I'm speaking on behalf of myself. Personally, I use the bus to go downtown. I go to meetings, I go to events. I used to, afterwards, spend time downtown in restaurants, cafes, bars, what have you. But now that the bus stops are in blighted areas, I don't do that anymore. I used to argue for people to go downtown, shop, eat, enjoy it, but I don't do that anymore. When I come downtown for a meeting, I go back as quickly as possible. Now, I'm sure one $30 meal at El Toro's or a cup of coffee at a local cafe doesn't mean much to you, but it means a lot to the businesses that I used to visit. I don't go downtown because I feel disrespected, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way. I hope the reason for this meeting was to tell City Council to pass our concern to other city officials. That is where it needs to go. EMTA, I've been to many meetings. They know how a lot of the citizens feel. I'm asking one question. Will any of you sponsor a council resolution to move the buses back to their original route on State Street? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Andrew Vai. I live at 1027 West 37th. The city's elected officials should be given credit for their efforts to keep the city of Erie out of bankruptcy. They've done this while maintaining streets, a reasonable police presence, summer festivals, other activities, and other necessary items. Still, the tax base continues to shrink, the entities that can be taxed are changing, and infrastructure is eroding. I would like to reintroduce an opportunity you may have heard before, but bears repeating. I've got 3 points to make in 4 minutes. 1, Destination Erie put together a report called the Existing Conditions and Trends Report that tells about the city and county right now, its current economic and physical status. In the city, housing uses up 20% of median income, defined as being able to pay rent for a 2-bedroom apartment. However, the combined cost of housing and transportation uses up 47% of median income. Transportation is more expensive than housing. This problem is even more extreme out in the county, putting a lot of country folk into poverty status. 2, there's a report called What We Learned from the Stimulus Package, which President Obama enacted in 2009. I'm not here to argue that the money came from some taxpayers and was spent on others. My point is specifically about the jobs that were created. For each $1 billion that was pumped into automobile highway infrastructure, 8,000 months of work were created. Many of these jobs were distant from workers' homes and lasted only until the highway project was completed. For each $1 billion that was pumped into public transportation, 16,000 months of work were created, twice as much. Many of these jobs were local and long-term. 3, the National Association of Realtors did a report called The New Real Estate Mantra. During the recession from 2006 to 2011, properties which are near public transit links kept their value at a rate 42% better than properties which are further away from public transportation. There's more going on with this than a desire to commute to work. Home buyers want to be near schools, shops, hospitals, parks, restaurants, and other amenities. These businesses need transport links too, so they are often also placed near transit stations. In effect, all the most desirable aspects of an area get clustered around transit stations, thereby creating livable neighborhoods where people want to remain local. It's not surprising these transit clusters proved so resilient during the recession. The cost to ride an Erie City bus for a year is less than $500. But many people in the city live far from a bus route and must use a car, which costs at least 10 times more. Erie can be turned into a strong community where people can afford to live. It's going to take a new mindset about the costs of and investments in transportation in order to turn around the slide into poverty that's already happening to so many of us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Leonard Davenport, here to talk about the bus situation. I'll be very brief, so you won't even have to worry about the timer. Point one, disabled, walk in our shoes. Imagine with me, everyone here, please, imagine with me, using this to cross snow-covered streets, using this to get across dark streets, using this as a visually impaired person. Close your eyes for a minute. I want you to know what it's like to be a visually impaired person. That's what it's like to be a visually impaired person. And on top of all of that, they're relighting State Street with no buses running, repaving State Street with no buses running on it. But there's no lights on one of the most dangerous streets in Erie. Why is that? What is the cost of a life? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Judy Lawrence. I live at 1625 Ponderosa Drive, Erie. That's in Summit Township, for those of you who don't know, so I'm not a city resident. This issue is important enough to me to take the bus down this evening to share with you my thoughts and opinions. I've been an occasional e-rider for the last 6 years. I only wish that more of us had spoken up when the bus stops and the shelters were removed from Perry Square. And maybe this latest ill-advised decision wouldn't have been made. But first, I'd like to compliment the Ease bus drivers. I have found them to be considerate, helpful, friendly, and accommodating. The latest attack on the e-riders demands public opinion. Why weren't we consulted? Why weren't we asked for our opinions? Why didn't the very users, the consumers of the E, ask for their opinions, ask what we thought? Why weren't the businesses on State Street asked for their opinions? The question I have is there a copy of the consultant's report and recommendations available for us to review? Is that available someplace for us? Is it available? Okay. You have it?
Well, I had one. I think somebody took it. I don't have one right this minute, no. But I probably could get another one.
Okay. I envision Erie as an environmentally friendly city. With our natural resources, we could and should be a green city. We should encourage the use of alternative forms of transportation. That includes walking and bicycling and carpooling and using public transportation. Instead, we seem determined to reward an outdated, environmentally unsound car culture. Car culture, one that typically and unfortunately has one person in one car. If there's a congestion on State Street, it's caused by the cars, not by the buses. The buses are the solution, not the problem. A bustling, busy, and yes, even congested State Street, our main street, should be desirable. Ghost towns aren't appealing to tourists. If congestion is a legitimate concern, a legitimate problem, then move the trolleys to Peach and French Streets. Reward the e-riders with the consideration and the convenience of loading, unloading, and, yes, transferring on State Street. Safety should also be a concern. I heard on the news this evening before I took the E downtown that Relco is going to come back. It may come back, and several townships have put forth funding, and the Relco system may come back. And that means Peach Street will now be, used by emergency vehicles with the Relco system so that people can travel down. What does that mean for the buses? They're taking up the space. There's the congestion that's going to occur. It's with the buses on Peach, the Relco system. So the presence of the buses on Peach will create congestion and increase life-saving emergency response time. Remove the bump outs, get the E back on State Street, put shelters and stops back in Perry Square. Start thinking green, and it will happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gail Henschel. My address is 21 West 9th Street. I'm disabled. I have a problem with directions, and the change will make it difficult for me to use the bus system. Someone has to, when I use a new bus route, someone has to physically ride the bus with me to show me where to get off, walk from the bus stop to my destination, back and forth several times. The bus change will make it difficult, was made without a public hearing. The first time I heard about this was on the news. Businesses on State Street will suffer because the buses being changed. Disabled riders will have trouble in the winter. I live at Tullio Towers in downtown. There's about five high-rises full of elderly and disabled people that will have trouble in the wintertime, sometimes even now, getting around with all their wheelchair walkers and stuff. It is unrealistic, I think, that a major city has a bus system that doesn't go on its main street. I am from a small town that doesn't have a bus system, and it was hard for me to even have a life, work, anything. My parents, my sister would have to take me places, and between the lift and the major bus system, I can get around pretty much independently. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Bowman. I live on 1127 West Gold Road. I'm here, and I finally am going to speak for my own self. What my friend Diane did not ask me to. This is what I feel about the route. Every day, I have to go down to P Street to catch the bus, or I go on by my church on my church close. And there is a bus station. Now, I'm not here for me. I'm here for my friend who is in the hospital. I'm here for my financial loss, so you know, and then she lives where I am. She have a problem walking. She have a problem walking all over because she have something happened to her heart. I know that, and I don't want she to fall. I don't want her to fall. Even last year, when my friend Marvin passed away, and you know where he was? 10th Street with this thing in a shelter. That's why I want to do. What to go on with the cold weather? What happened to the weather? I don't want nobody else to do this when Marvin died from this, because he have a king, and I really want to speak all the time for my life, because I live on Gold Road and there is no buses go by my house. No buses go on Gold Road, and I am sick and tired, so I cannot speak to myself because I have somebody else to take me downtown anyways. I have my mom and I have my dad. And I hope this is right. If the bus go by 13, 12, I know, 12 or 13, wherever, I can go down to the block and cross over, and then I'll be right there to MSA. I'm right there. When the buses go back on State Street, I'm going back on the buses. Now, I want you to get to your act together, and you better go and get the buses back on State Street. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Just want to pass something out here. This is for the study. There's 3 pages.
Kick them off.
Oh, 3 pages?
Oh, 3 pages.
Well, we've known each other too long.
I know.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's life.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is William Welch, 3108 Highland Road. 3108 Highland Road. I'm speaking on behalf of the Sierra Club. We're very concerned about the process in which this was developed. As you look, came right from the Fleming study, you'll see that it's highlighted. The proposed operating plan should be reviewed with EMTA board members and municipal officials. That's you. Assuming acceptance of route changes, EMTA staff should undertake a public information campaign and hold a public hearing to satisfy FTA requirements. FTA requirements, the Federal Transportation Authority. Why wasn't this done? If you look at the recommendations in this report and see what was implemented, why is the city funding reports which are bogus, which are not being implemented, which are actually denying the most vulnerable people in your community you should be concerned about. And I don't understand why you're not, as a city council, you should be outraged because you heard people speaking, the blind, the handicapped, those people on walkers, people in wheelchairs, they have to be considered. They're not trash. They're human beings. You cannot deny that. And anyone that says that these people don't have a right to exist, and to be able to use their communication and transportation facilities, that is an outrage. They should be ashamed of themselves, because this is the problem. This was decided without input from the public, and that's why the public is so outraged. But more than that is a problem with dealing with people that have problems. And I can sympathize with the man from one of the CPAs. I can sympathize. There used to be public restrooms on State Street. Did you know that? They're right across from Perry Square. It used to go down. We don't have, that's a problem. And there's signs in places, don't come in. You can't come in here unless, that's a problem of the city. That's a problem. Now, what do you want to do? Get dogs out there and herd them around like they did down in Selma? And I saw this happen in Pittsburgh. This is wrong. And to treat minorities, that's wrong. I've spent life working in civil rights, and I don't believe it is right to actually discriminate. And you are discriminating by making it more difficult for people of color to get around town because they don't have the jobs. 28% unemployment rate in this town. 28%. So I think several things. One, the council should ask the EMTA and the mayor's office, how come they didn't implement their own plan they paid for? The council gives them $320,000 a year. You approve that. You should raise a question. If they do pay for these studies and nothing's done, why pay for the study? I'm telling you, there's going to be legislation across Pennsylvania on these authorities. They're out of control, like in Harrisburg. They're bankrupting the city of Harrisburg, an authority did. There has to be more control over authorities, whether it's by the Auditor General or whether we need legislation to look into having some oversight. We need oversight of these authorities. Now, I believe personally that the EMTA was forced by I don't know what, but I think someone in the city hall told them this is the way to go. Because they're trying to increase ridership in their system. And any bus company, they want to increase ridership. Why would you discourage it? Now, I know this. There's a photo contest going to take the poor and homeless in Erie. It's a contest that's going on in November for the homeless. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. But not only that, but the national press is going to look at this. A city that won't let people off in their main park in the community, won't let them get off the bus in their own community, that's outrageous. So I'd like to see something happen. I just don't think you should listen, and I think a lot of people, I'd like to know what they're going to do with all these things they promised. They're not doing it. How come you spend money on things you're not doing? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
My name is Gerald Clausen. I preside at 111 East 11th Street. Right now, the buses is all right, but what am I going to do in the winter to get to the bus stops? When there's no ice on the sidewalks. That's what my concern is. And what is council going to try to do to get it back on State Street? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Carol Drake. I live at 912 Walnut Street. I walk around the city a lot, so I see a lot. And last winter, when the ice and snow was on the street, there was a lady that was stuck in her wheelchair on the sidewalk. And before I helped her get unstuck, she said she was there for half an hour in her wheelchair waiting for somebody to help her. And she was right where, you made it so it's supposed to be wheelchair accessible, but when the snowplow comes by, it just puts all the snow back in there, and nobody's there to shovel it out or anything. And I've helped quite a few people over the years and stuff get unstuck. And with the buses the way they are now, it is a bad situation. When they were on State Street, yes, I could understand the gentleman's concern about the people in front of his building and urinating. Because to me, if somebody does that, that's disrespectful. They have no pride in themselves or anyone else and stuff. And I would like to see the buses back on State Street for the people in the high-rises, for the businesses, and for anyone else that needs it. And I'm sorry that the situation happened the way it did. The bump outs, I think, was a terrible idea. Besides, you pay a lot of money for certain things to be built and done, and then half the time they don't work. And I think when you call in and you report it, and within a certain amount of times it should be fixed, and it's not, and you go with month and month afterwards, that's saying, wow, your taxes are really paying for this? That's wrong also. But thank you for listening. I appreciate it, and you have a good night.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight.
My name's Enos Brenizer. I live at 622 East 9th. That's 9th and Ash, where the bus quits running at 6:30 at night, because it's the bang bang place, You see it on the news every night. But now they're going to move our buses off of State Street to French Street with no lighting, none. Go over and look at it. Look at it on a Friday or Saturday night when the cars are going 60 and 70 miles an hour up the street because the police are on call on the west side or east side for shootings. What are you going to do when a baby dies or a senior citizen dies? I'm a grandfather. My grandson has cerebral palsy. I couldn't put him on that block because I would be afraid, what if he goes off the curb? There's no lighting out there. In the wintertime, it gets what, 20 below zero with the wind chill? This is Erie, Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? They had it set up right. Now you got French Street. When the ambulances come down, what do they use? They use French Street, don't they? Would you rather have buses clogging up Beach Street and having somebody sitting behind them in the ambulance waiting to get to an emergency room? I mean, the question is, who's going to be responsible? Is it the MTA? Is it City Council? The mayor was supposed to be here tonight. I'm sorry he couldn't make it. It's not that big an issue. You know what I mean? But the police force does a good job. But I was robbed 4 years ago, beat severely by 5 young men. And I went to the hospital, got taken care of. What's going to happen if one of these senior citizens is sitting in the dark on French or Peach and gets robbed? Are you going to wait? Oh, announcement, news alert, we need lights. You know what I mean? I hope you take all this into consideration when something bad happens, because I know there's grandfathers and uncles sitting up here, and there's little kids out there late at night with their moms, and that's your responsibility, not ours. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, my name's John Gandrud, and I live at 1401 State, that's the Mercantile Building, and I've lived there about a year. Prior to that, I lived on the corner of 6th and Delaware in the frontier area of Erie. When I lived there, I rode the 3132 bus regularly, even though I could certainly afford to have a car and had another car. And rode it in the inclement weather. I rode my bicycle when the weather was good to work. I work in the Renaissance Center at 10th and State. Now, of course, I can walk to work, so I don't need the EMTA to do that. However, I came here tonight because I'm extremely concerned about what happened to the buses on State Street, as I am personally familiar, obviously, because I rode them for a period of time, and I know that the people who have to depend on the buses are a vulnerable population. We've seen plenty of evidence of that tonight. They don't have other suitable transportation options. The EMTA itself is not really an adequate public transportation system, honestly. 30 minutes on a major route between buses should not even be considered nearly acceptable in the first place, but it's all they have. And now that service has been further degraded by a decision, as many people have pointed out, without any public input. This is the first, as far as I know, real public input. And I thank City Council for taking the time to hear the public out on this issue tonight. The question now is what do we do now that this decision has been made? And I want to circle back just a bit. The reasons it appears the decision was made, from what I can gather, had to do with some situations on State Street, as was pointed out by the gentleman earlier today. I have some sympathy for that. I walk the streets of Erie during my lunch hour. That's what I do during my lunch hour most of the time, so I walk the whole downtown area and around. So I'm familiar with what goes on State Street. And personally, I wasn't too happy about a lot of the things I saw, the trash and some of the people that were not behaving the way that honestly they should be behaving in public, and certainly not on the main street of the city, to be honest with you. So I have sympathy for that. But trying to deal with that in the way that it was dealt with, in my opinion, is wrong. It's inappropriate. That problem is not a problem of public transit. It's a different problem. It's maybe related to people who use the bus to some extent. The city's got to find a different solution for that than limiting the public transportation options for the population that uses the buses. I don't know what authority that City Council has with EMTA. It's a separate independent legal authority, but I would urge that City Council seriously consider doing what it can by resolution or whatever to urge the EMTA to change its decision, put the buses back on State Street. If there needs to be a change, let's do it appropriately with public comment. There is a process in place right now. It's called Destination Erie, which I assume you've all heard of. EMTA is part of the Transportation Committee. The City of Erie is part of that. If we're going to make changes like this, let's do it through the proper process, consult the public, consult transportation experts, do what we need to do in a way that doesn't degrade transportation, but hopefully improves it for the citizens of the City of Erie and the Erie community as a whole.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi there.
My name is Lori Schreckengast. I live in 12 Mindy Court in Harbor Creek. I don't live in the city, but I do live in Harbor Creek. I live on Station Road, actually. I have an 8-minute walk up, an 8-minute walk back from the buses. When those buses were changed to French and Peach Street, that I can do it. That's not it. You know, even though I have a cane, I can do it. But it just made it more difficult. Each time when you guys stop the buses at Perry Square, that made it a little more difficult. When this change happened, it made it a little more difficult. I used to be downtown every day for one thing or another, to even, to buy something small at Subway or something. Every time you make a change that's, affects me negatively, I spend less time and less money here. And I think maybe you guys thought of the people in the city, but I don't think you thought about people, that can, that'll buy things from the county that come into the, ride the buses. And I just don't think that was thought out at all. I have to catch a 9:30 bus on French Street, and I just kind of wondered how you guys would feel about catching a bus at that time of the night. I do like a lot of, things downtown, and I catch the later bus, especially during the summer when there's things going on. I am scared to death on French Street, and I'm not normally very scared of anything. But that really is very much of a concern for me, especially right at the parking lot there. There's a lot of people say they're just walking right up to State Street and 12th and catching it there because they're afraid on French Street. And let me see what else. And I guess one of the things that I wanted to, this is just, I know nobody's probably interested, but I just thought, as you guys have made these decisions, I just thought that, if anyone wanted to take the bus, how I get, there from Harbor Creek to Erie and back, I would sure be willing to do that, so you guys could get an idea what the people that ride the buses actually do and, have to go through. But anyway, that's all I can think of right now. But anyway, I just basically don't want the businesses to suffer, for it. But I just, every time a change is made like that, I'll admit I spend a little less money there. And I try to be as loyal as I can as the businesses in Erie that have been good to me. But, there is a limit. And physically, I can do it, but, it makes it more difficult. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Sue Henschel, and I live at 1812 Ottawa Drive. I came here with my sister tonight to express my displeasure in the decision that the bus routes were moved off of State Street. My primary concern is the safety. When you look at State Street, there's always either car traffic, there's people walking around. If somebody were to have a problem on State Street, there's businesses there that they could go inside and say, hey, I need a hand with something. There's just a lot of people around. With the buses moved to Peach Street and French Street, you don't have that opportunity. As I come downtown to meet my sister, I pay attention to where is the traffic, what's going on, how safe is it, how does it look for her safety walking around. And Peach Street and French Street really are not safe at all. The lighting is decreased. There's not the traffic moving around, as I said. If she were to get into trouble for some reason, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. And so I guess that's my primary concern is the safety. And as the lady in front of me said, French Street is just awful. You have several parking garages there. That's just an accident waiting to happen. Myself, when I'm downtown and I use the parking garages, I'm nervous myself. So I can't imagine what some of these folks are feeling who are feeling, they are disenfranchised or they are vulnerable to folks. So I do feel a lot of empathy towards them. So thanks very much for the opportunity.
you.
Hi, my name's Josie Gildersleeve, and I live at 21 West 9th Street. I have a problem with directions. If I'm, not aware of where I'm going, that makes it a lot harder. It was a lot convenient on me to get down to State Street and go, either on the east or west side. And I also have a problem with all the handicapped people, especially the ones that can't see or walk or have COPD. They can't walk very far without getting out of breath. You guys really didn't think about this before you put it into effect. It should have been discussed with the public before it went into effect. It would have been, I would be more than, make a lot of sense for it to be back on state. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak?
Yeah, 1977, my parents, 2007. I go back to the 1970s.
Can you give us your name and
I'm over 60 years
address?
old. Well, anyway...
Excuse me for a minute. Can you just give us your name and address clearly?
Oh, yeah, Tracy Montroy, 424 Poplar Street.
Thank you.
Well, in 2007, my friends, they moved to, what's the name of that place? The Bayfront Hotel out on the west side. Anyway, well, this whole thing took place when I was visiting my friends. I go visit them, there's a long wooden hallway there, right? Somebody urinated in that hallway, right? Okay, I got blamed for it. So naturally, I almost got arrested for doing that. I didn't do that, and the police kind of believed me more than they believed the hotel owner. Well, I don't know if they could, I don't want to, sound prejudiced. They were from India, or they were from Arabia. I don't know. I don't know if they were Muslim. I don't know if they were Hindu. Well, anyway, I almost got arrested for that, but they believe me, and they say, well, I ain't allowed there anymore. Obviously, it's trespassing. Okay, I almost got arrested, Now my friends got mad at them and moved out of there. They moved right next door to the Park Hotel. And if I visit them over there. But I'm just saying, that's how that was dealt with me. Thank you. That's a police matter. They should have dealt with that situation too.
Thank you.
That way has nothing to do with the bus, not the scheduling or anything. It has something to do with people doing that stuff, and they're not being caught.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council. My name is Randy Whiteman. I live at 230 West 29th Street. It just doesn't make sense. And I think we citizens want and need for it to make sense. I've been riding EMTA buses for over 40 years, not on a regular basis, but whenever I need them. But I did when I was in college and in high school. I rode the bus every day. And buses have always serviced all of State Street with no problem. And now suddenly it's a problem. Back in the 70s, we had the Transitway Mall, in which State Street was only one lane each direction on the blocks in question here. I clearly remember one day a bus driver who was stuck in traffic said, "These cars don't belong here." In fact, at certain hours of the day, cars were prohibited on State Street. But removing the buses was certainly never an option during that era. Now State Street is 2 lanes each direction, and the traffic is too unbearable. It doesn't make sense. I recently traveled to London, and 2 weeks ago I was in New York City. If the mayor wants to see traffic, he should visit one of those cities. It took us a half an hour just to travel a couple city blocks in Manhattan. But would either city consider removing its public transportation from its major thoroughfares? Never. I think Erie is trying to make a name for itself by being the first city anywhere to do so. Other than this, it just doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Hello, where is the mic? Here? Okay, got it. That's fine. I think they can hear me. My name is Ann Gerard, and I live at the Boston store. One thing that hasn't been, I don't think, quite covered properly is the workers who need the buses. How difficult it is for them to transfer when they have to run from block to block. To me, that's a kind of prejudice. These are the people who are helping the tourist industry by serving in the restaurants, the theaters, the hotels, the motels, the stores. What did you do to them to help them? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening, Judy Harrison, 316 East 34th Street, Erie, PA. I ride the buses regularly. I find the EMTA system very convenient. I find the skill of the drivers gives you a safe ride to wherever you're going. I seldom go downtown after dark, except last weekend for Erie Days. And when I went over to French to catch the bus home, I was very uncomfortable. So I walked to the next corner. Wasn't any better. Next corner, still dark. I'm fortunate I'm able to walk, and I went down by Hammett Hospital to feel safe to catch a bus to go home. Please reconsider returning to State Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard? I know we have Mr. Selesky here tonight. He was going to wait till he heard all the concerns before he gave some comments. I'm asking council on our end, before we ask any, at this point, not to ask Mr. Selesky any questions, just go with our notes and see what his response is from what he heard tonight, and then we'll do a follow-up if that sounds fair to everyone.
Okay, again, I'm Dennis Selensky, the Director of the Transit Authority. I know all of you individually and work closely with you collectively. Since the decision to reroute the buses into downtown, my personal experience has been I fielded probably 20 compliments for every complaint that I've heard. People have virtually run across the room to compliment us for the move. Anytime I dine in downtown, which I dine on a regular basis in the downtown, I work downtown, I partake in all the downtown, the feedback from the local businesses has been tremendous. We have had some consistent concerns regarding the elderly and individuals with disabilities. I kind of took that as one of the real prevalent themes here tonight. I'm sure you have too. Certainly something that bears more discussion. Safety is a key concern in our partnership with the city when we talk about numbers of shelters, lighting, snow removal, and all the things that can be done to ensure that safety, is at a premium. I'm sure you took copious notes, as I did, on my little handheld thing I carry now, relative to those issues, and that seems to be a prevailing issue. In our previous meetings with public meetings we've had, our board meetings and things where folks have showed up, I've heard a couple of other concerns relative to not understanding how to use the routes and things like that. We put in a vigorous training program and advertised that. I didn't hear any of that tonight. I'm not suggesting it doesn't still exist to some extent, but the fact that we're not hearing it back, I'm hopeful that we're getting that message out in terms of how to utilize the services where they run and that the training is available and working. In terms of going forward, you've had opportunity, of course, to hear what folks have had to say. I'm always available for you individually or collectively to respond to any concerns, questions, or comments you have relative to what folks have said. I, of course, appreciate the opportunity to come to any public forum and hear what folks have to say and try to tweak the system, improve the system, and make changes to the system to positively impact folks. Again, I think the prevailing thing I heard today was relative to the individuals with disability and the elderly and concerns about the distance between the routes and where they're being dropped. I've heard some things about transfers and other things along those lines as well. I'm more than happy to discuss that with you, as I have been since we took this on, and I appreciate the opportunity to come out and hear what everybody has to say. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. Any other comments or anybody else to be heard this evening? Sure.
My name is Jerry.
Well, please come to the mic and hiya.
My name is Gary Horton. I live at 1344 East 36th Street. And I'm just wondering, I see a resolution under new business, resolution number 2, extending the term of exemptions, deductions, abatements, and credits for real property.
Sir, unfortunately, this is still the public hearing end of our council meeting. We had our citizens to be heard. This is strictly now regarding the bus changes on State Street.
Okay. Well, who can I talk to about that? Who should I contact? Who's the liaison on?
Brenda Sandberg.
Right, Brenda Sandberg. Who? Brenda Sandberg,
No,
Economic
who on
Development.
council is the liaison that I could talk to about that?
Economic development.
Who?
Economic Development.
Who is it?
John, is it John?
On blighted property.
Later disconnect.
Well, Mr. President, when you
we'll
find out,
get you
would
that
let me
answer.
know? I'm sorry. Okay.
All right.
Mr. Horton, you can always call me. I got your back.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jerry Hummus, and I live at 1626 West 39th Street. I'm an Erie resident. I work downtown, and I've worked downtown for a number of years. I drive downtown every day. The only thing, I guess, that I really want to say is it's a very sad, unfortunate thing that the city has to endure the pain that it does concerning this whole bus situation. My personal experience has been at least 2 times driving back and forth on State Street. Just last night, I was almost run into, I was traveling the interior lane of State Street, and a bus was trying to negotiate out of one of the bump outs. And in my mind, I question, I guess the buses have to impose that interior lane in order to clear those bump outs. I was almost run into, forced to veer into the lane of oncoming traffic, and I was on the interior lane. This has happened to me twice. We can attribute this to failure to yield on the bus driver's part. I was forced to slow down so that I did not cross over the double lines and go into the other lane of oncoming traffic. For a split second, I feared for my life. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is I do not think that city buses can safely negotiate the bump outs. I'm very sorry and empathetic for all the people that are imposed, for those that had their bus situation taken away from them on State Street. I used to take buses back and forth to high school, college. I'm a lifelong Erie resident. I understand and empathize with those people that need buses to get back and forth to their homes and to their jobs. But I do not physically think that it is real to say the buses can negotiate those bump outs. I don't know what the consultants said. All I know is that 2 times I feared for my life when I was driving on State Street with a bus coming out and negotiating a bump out. And I'm very, very, very sorry that this city has to endure what it's going through. I don't understand why these bump outs were put in. I lived in Erie when the Transitway Mall existed. I don't understand why anyone would even consider putting bump outs in. That's a separate issue. But right now, I would urge the city, sadly, to keep the buses off of State Street because I don't think it's safe. Maybe we should just let buses have State Street and not endanger those people that are traveling in cars.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard? At this point, I'll have council make a few comments if anybody is interested. All right, Jessica, you're up.
You want me to go first or last? Thank you, Mr. President. I think a couple things that we need to put out there for the public is that City Council didn't make this decision, just so you know. We don't have that power. And a part of the rationale for having a public hearing is because we've heard from citizens in our capacity as the representatives for the citizens that this is a concern and this is affecting many of our citizens. So we want to hear from you. In our role as council, you know, we do have some different things that we can try to do to try to affect a change or try to look for solutions or try to help and talk with the EMTA about the concerns you're having and try to shed some light on the issues and hopefully come up with some remedies or help them to see that we need to make some remedies here. So just so everyone understands, it's not a vote. We can't vote yes, we can't vote no. We don't have a vote on this decision, but we can bring input and bring your concerns to light for the authority, for the EMTA. And in saying that, a lot of things, you have raised a lot of questions in my mind that I know Council President said we will have a follow-up with Mr. Slinsky and bring our questions at that time. And you have brought in a lot of good questions to my mind and that we can try to, flesh out those answers and get a good result for you. Certain things really struck me. One of the things was I would like to know if the ridership numbers have changed since the move. I think one of the things that congestion in the downtown area provides this opportunity for an EMTA or a transit authority to get more people on the bus. If you've got too many cars, let's try to promote bus riding. And so looking at the issue of congestion in terms of how we could promote ourselves as a transit authority and get more people riding, that would be a way to solve the congestion. And so I'm wondering if this move has affected ridership numbers, because that's really important. If they're not bringing their riders in, they're not going to need their as many buses, they're not going to need as many drivers, not as much money coming in, they're going to need more government support, things like that. That's one big question. We did receive, we were given downtown studies and State Street bus route studies so that we could review them, and it did in here talk about public information campaign, so I would like to inquire as to what was done in terms of public information, and whether there was any kind of public hearings, things like that. We will need to look into that some more. And I think a lot of concerns have been raised about safety. So safety and security, lighting, things like that. Those issues are obviously paramount, so we should look into those further. And I just appreciate everyone coming out and really being well thought out and well articulate in your messages, and hopefully we can get some more answers for you and bring them back in a future meeting. Thank you.
Bob? Mr. Bursky.
Thank you, Mr. President. You can call me Bob, it's fine. My biggest thing that I just want everyone to know is that what I heard is that people have been affected by this change and people are hurting. The poor, the disabled, the elderly. And I don't know if we'll be able to get the buses back on State Street, but I will assure you that we'll do everything in our power to help alleviate your pain and alleviate some of the concerns. Nobody should be afraid to be in our downtown, whether they're a bus rider, whether they're going to a concert, whether they're going to a restaurant. Nobody should be afraid in our downtown. That's a serious concern, and we have to take care of that, not just for the bus riders, but for our city and for every person that's down here. When I look at, when I listen to what you have to say, I want you to know that we do take your concern seriously, and you gave us a lot of good feedback to help us to adjust to the transition and make the changes necessary so that the change is less painful. And I'm happy to hear that EMTA is willing to work with the city and work with the people to do that. And I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, taking time out of your schedule and your busy day, and it's a late night, so thank you for your concern, and I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? Mr. Evans?
Yeah. As Amy knows from the conversations we've had, I've talked to her about Plan B, we called it. The idea that if by chance it was not possible for us to cause the buses to return to State Street, what at a minimum are the things that ought to be done right now to make the situation better. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't at the same time examine the possibility or use whatever influence we have potentially to cause the decision to be changed. But I don't think that we ought to let a week go by with the situation remaining as it is if it's unsafe for people. I don't think we ought to say, well, we'll wait till next spring to see how many people were affected, how many people were harmed, how many people were frightened. I don't think that we ought to wait on those kinds of things. So certainly I'm in favor of our trying to deal with lighting issues and seating issues and waiting areas immediately. That doesn't mean that we don't at the same time look at the larger decision, but I think to say, well, we're not going to deal with the larger, or those issues for 6 months or 8 months until we're sure we can't reroute the buses, I think would be a further disservice to the riders of the buses. So I'm very pleased that the EMTA is open to those ideas, and I think we've gotten plenty of excellent feedback tonight about what some of those issues are. So certainly my position is going to be to encourage the EMTA to attack those problems immediately. You know, doesn't mean we won't continue to discuss the routing issue and the pros and cons of moving it back. And I've certainly received a lot of feedback from people on both sides of the issue. But if the current situation is not as safe and as good as it could be, then we ought to dedicate ourselves to work with the EMTA to make that better. I agree with Councilman Mirsky. If anybody feels unsafe in downtown Erie, that should be a problem that we address. Whether you're a bus rider or you're here for an event or whatever, nobody should feel unsafe. And so I think we have to deal with those issues right away.
Mr. President, again, I just echo everything that my counterparts on council have said in appreciation for everyone's comments and thoughtfulness, and for EMTA. And then I'll say on a personal and professional note, Dennis has always been 100% available and accessible. Concerns, and even if we don't agree, he's at least has given us his ear as counsel and his various liaisons since his tenure. I do have a very strong opinion about the bus route situation, and to be perfectly honest, if I was to share that, I feel like, and again, I'll use the term feel, but I also think that it makes sense to me for the buses to be on our main street, which is State Street, for all of the reasons that we've heard today. Often, we don't have the luxury to go on our own feeling as council. We have to make decisions based on broader things than our feelings and be involved in the public domain beyond our feelings. There's a lot of things I feel a certain way about, but there's decisions that have to be made with more than just my feelings involved, other information, processes, etc. That's why I was in favor, and I think most of us were, in this public hearing, because I can have an opinion, but this venue has allowed me to have a more informed opinion based on many of the users of the EMTA. I've heard, as many have said, I've heard pros and cons. I've heard people say this has been wonderful to see so much space downtown, but then I've also heard, man, this is terrible. It's like a ghost town. And I've experienced that. You know, walk downtown after a city council meeting, I'm going to Subway, somebody said, and you're going, it's kind of nice in that you don't have to run around and walk around people, but the spillover of that means there's less action, there's less protection, there's less inherent interfacing with each other. And I ride the bus. I do. I ride the bus a couple times a week. From my house to 3132, somebody referenced it earlier. I ride it, and I get right off, if I got a council meeting, get right off on, well, it was on 7th Street in State, but now I have to walk a block over, and guess what? I need that walk. It's good for me, it's healthy, I'm strong enough and able to do it. There are a lot of people who just can't. And we have to find a way, if we cannot move, or the option is not to move it back and to change it back. Again, as everyone's echoed, we have to find the best resolution to meet at the very base level the safety and the health concerns of our citizens. Ideally, again, it'd be great to be able to have to just walk across the street to get a transfer. To me, I think that's optimal. My daughter caught 2 buses today. She had to, from our house, there's no quick route. She had to come downtown, and she had to go up to Central for her practice, because I was at a meeting. My wife was, was great at 12:30 in the afternoon. But she had her practice ended up being, I don't know, she had a couple things, but anyway, she had to catch a late bus back. And I said, there's no way in the world I'm going to let my 16-year-old daughter be on Peach Street after dark by herself on the bus. I wouldn't have liked it on State, but at least there's a little more action and there's a little more inherent protection there. So I changed my whole schedule. I said, baby, you are not riding the bus, and not just because of that, because I didn't want to ride the bus anyway, but that was definitely in the back of my mind. And so I think at the very, very core of this is whatever we can do to keep the safety concerns of our citizens to a minimum. We can make them as comfortable as possible, when I say them, I mean us, because we live here too. Some of us catch the bus too, all of that. Make us as comfortable as possible, but we're not going to be able to meet every comfort level need, but we should be able to invest and move to make every safety need to be dealt with. We should be able to put another bench or shelter on Peach Street for those that are going to need it. And not just the elderly, not just the physically disabled, just a hard-working person who wants to sit down and wait 30 minutes for the bus. It's okay. Those are comforts that I think we can do and things that we can do to ease the pain. Again, I could go on, and we all got things to say. But I just think that at the base level, the public safety concern has to be dealt with no matter what. What we're doing now, I think should have been done before. It's just simple. I think it should have been done before. It may not have changed anything, but at least some of these concerns would have been set up, and the safety concerns probably would have been dealt with in a proactive, before it happened way, versus 2 or 3 and 4 months later. And so I think that's important. And finally, the issues that people raise, and I have some sympathy, and not sympathy, but empathy and concern, and feel the same way. You should not be urinating in a potted plant. That's just, that's just ridiculous. But if it's happening, that's not a transit issue. That's a citizen's lack of respect for themselves and their space issue that should be dealt with. And we shouldn't use that as a benefit or a spillover benefit for maybe what could be considered a poor transportation decision. We shouldn't give life to a decision that hurts people to say that, well, because people were urinating, we got less urination in the building, that's okay to move the buses. I think it's bigger than that. I think the con or the pro side should be bigger than that. And that's pretty much all we heard tonight in favor of this. And I am really passionate about this on a lot of levels, but most of the people who are in favor, first of all, obviously weren't here for whatever reason, and that's okay. But I'd be interested to know if they rode the bus. I'd be very interested, and some of them may have, I don't know. But I don't know those who were saying, oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Have they been on a bus in 10 years, or 5 years, or 6 months, or 6 days? Maybe they have, and I'm not judging it. But they weren't here, so we don't know. But we do know most of the people here that are against this move are constant and needed bus users. And we have to value that opinion and do our best to deal with that. So, again, I get really wordy and stuff on it, so I apologize. But I think it's important that we recognize that it's important to do this stuff pre-major transitions in our community, not post, because we could probably have eliminated some of the concerns tonight in a proactive way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, could I just have one?
You only spoke once.
Come on. Just one, because...
No.
Mr. Witherspoon, please.
No.
All right.
Make it happen.
Mr. Jones, I got one comment, because what Mr. Jones said reminded me, I had written down, I forgot. The behavioral issues that he talked about, we've just transferred them to another street. We haven't solved them. I don't know what we're doing. If somebody would have told me about a behavioral problem, we'd be trying to figure out how to fix it behavioral, not moving it to Peach and French, when those businesses are going to be down here in some, short time frame, if those behaviors start happening at their businesses as well. So we didn't even solve the behavior problem. All we did was move it, and that is silly. Okay, sorry.
David?
I don't want to be repetitive. I know a lot of the very good comments from the other council members here. But I do want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I appreciate your input. I learned a lot from your comments. But I did want to just say real quick, we can address the lighting, which is, of course, a safety that can help with the safety concerns. And then the garbage pickup problems, that can definitely be addressed. But it will be difficult to address the extra travel distance that a lot of the people talked about today for the handicapped and elderly. That's something that would be harder to address. And then the problems with the safety concerns of having vacant stops where there's not many people and it's a smaller street and it's not a main street. But we definitely want to continue these discussions and move this forward to attempt to make the best solution. But I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilwoman Kunso and Councilman Mirsky, Councilman Jones, Councilman Evans, Councilman Brennan, ditto.
Yes, very, very valid points from all our council members and from you, the citizens. Change is tough in our town, and Erie, PA, you know it, we don't like to change. We don't like to see change too often. These are tough decisions, but very valid points between lighting and safety and crime and shelters to wait for the bus. And these are concerns, as liaison Mr. Jones here will personally take up with Mr. Selesky as well as the rest of us on council to try to get some of these resolved, some answers for you. There isn't anybody up here that can promise you buses are going to be back on State Street. That is out of our control. It's the fact of the matter. But we are here to help represent you to make things as safe and as possible, and I just appreciate a outcome we had tonight from both the citizens. I appreciate Mr. Selesky for chiming in also and being present tonight, and we'll move forward from here and get get some answers that need to be addressed. Thanks again. I think that ends our public hearing, Mr. Clem.
Report from Mr. Rush.
No, that wasn't our committee report. That was,
I want to hear, he got a report. You're going to do something.
where do we go, to committee reports, Mr. Clem? Is that
Unless Mr. Rush has something from the administrator?
Chad?
Very simply, I think you'll find great cooperation. Our primary responsibility as administration, as you know, is public safety and public works. They're in our wheelhouse. We'll be working with this to make sure that basically the safety and the convenience of our citizens and working with the authority, MTA, and so forth. And there will be a time. This is not an event, it's a process. And we'll work through the process to get the best possible result we can. We love safety and we love public service being done well. That's our commitment to council. That's our commitment to the public. We'll listen. We won't guarantee anything, but we'll make the best choices we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rush.
City Council now adjourn at 9:39 p.m. Mr. Winarski, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Evans, Mr. Rancuso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Witherspoon.
Good job, Mr. President.
That's only our public hearing.